Welcome to the Certo's Curveball Valorant Champions Tour preview show for Stage 3. It's the Challengers Playoff that we've already got to, and this time around we're going to be looking specifically at the EMEA and NA regions. And as always, I may be your host, but we've got the two legends alongside me in fRoD and Mitch. And fRoD, it's been a while since we've done one of these shows. How you been doing, man? There's been plenty of Valorant action to watch.
Yeah, doing good, man. I actually got myself with the KCP Pioneers, just going through a little bit of the NA gauntlet out there. We didn't make it too far and everything like that, obviously to the closed part, but it's been quite a gauntlet. NA's been looking extremely insane, but I mean EU is wild. I mean, just even seeing everything that's been going on over there, it's been quite a amazing thing to watch. Yeah,
a bit of a turbulent time for EU, hasn't it been, Mitch?
Yeah, it's not exactly been the most predictable. I think we've started to do pick'ems now on a lot of the sites, and well, none of mine are looking very good, I'll be honest. And I actually am very afraid for those people who maybe were successful in the pick'em because they might need to see a doctor.
Yeah, some of these predictions that would have made sense didn't come all the way through, but this is what comes after the roster mania and all that side of things. Now, I'm going to start by bringing up the EMEA bracket and just showing everyone what we've got in terms of teams there. Now, for EMEA, there's 4 teams that will go through, but there is a hell of a lot of teams in here, Mitch, right? When we look at Ascend, G2, Guild, FPX, Supermassive Blaze, Oxygen, all the ones that came through the first side of things there. Also, Gambit and Na'Vi coming out of the CIS region. Then we got Team Liquid, Giants, Fireflux, and Forza in there as well to give us our teams. And I will say when it comes to this, I'm going to start on the CIS side of things here, Mitch, that the Na'Vi, new roster, a lot of these players are players we looked at that had a bit of success on some teams, but never really made it that far. This seems like the ultimate kind of combination of solid players from the region.
Yeah, I think especially Dingshay and SSK have been two players that caught my eye as Sentinels and Flashers respectively, although SSK has obviously expanded a lot since. But I remember his Breach play back in the day, man, it was absolutely spectacular. So I'm really expecting a lot from this Na'Vi roster, honestly. I know all of these players decently well, and I think that they're very, very capable. Plus, they've had a lot of time to get their preparation in, and they've hidden from the EU teams for the most part. So I'd actually say these guys have a pretty good shot of making some decent impact. Just a shame there's not that many spots up for grabs. Yeah,
that's the thing, right? 12 teams, 4 spots. It's a lot to fight for here, but I don't know. Will it be just all EU teams, do you think, fRoD, coming through this? Do you think maybe we'll get a CIS one and then maybe a Turkish team come through?
I mean, I think Gambit has a really good chance. I mean, they were one of the teams that I was kind of shocked that they didn't make it that far in the previous iteration, but I really do think that Gambit is going to have a good showing there. I mean, G2 is also looking very strong, right? So it's kind of like, I think EU is going to primarily dominate that side, but I mean, CIS is, in my opinion, going to make a really good showing there as well.
And then we've got to come on to the North American side of things, and the teams we've got on this side of the bracket. We got start off with the first 4 teams that made it through. Sentinels, who had, I guess, a 1-game loss. A lot of people lost their minds to it, right? They lost to XSET, but then they just bounced back and rolled through everyone. So XSET with a second team through, 100 Thieves, Envy, TSM, FaZe, Luminosity, Rise. Was there anything that really surprised you during that part, fRoD?
I wouldn't say it's a surprise. I think maybe from an outsider's perspective, people might not see a team like Rise, for example, going through, but those guys have been playing lights out. Ever since they got Superman, he's been one of those star support type players, like a hidden gem in my opinion, and finally he was able to get on a team that he meshes very well. I mean, he had a brief stint in Beast Coast with us, but then right after, I knew that once he found that right team, he was just going to take them over the edge. And I think that Rise is going to be a team that's going to obviously show a lot of people more what they can do, but the other team I think it has to be XSET. They've made some really good roster changes. The coach Sicko has done a great job over there as well. Def has done a great job leading that team, especially in the game. BCJ has done a great job as well. These are some of the new guys coming through, and I think that those two teams have really, they've been in people's radar, but some that don't really focus so much on the NA side don't know how strong some of these teams are, and these guys are really practicing hard, grinding hard, and they're aiming for the very top. Will they get there? Yeah, we'll wait and see, but they're aiming very, very high and trying to get there.
Now, I'm going to start us off by looking back onto the EU things. And we touched on some of these teams in the previous episode, on the fact that roster changes were coming through, the roster mania shuffles. Remember, Valorant is such a new game that obviously we're going to see a lot of changes. Top spot's definitely going to be contested for all of it. But Mitch, G2 and Ascend in here. For me, when I'm looking at this G2 roster, I finally see a balance in G2. A good agent pool that can come through, more flexibility for sure. And, well, Mitch, we know him from another game as well. But Nuki, this man is delivering once again. And I think he looks probably in his best shape yet.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, Nuki coming onto this roster. We knew him over in Heretics. We knew him in Counter-Strike. This is a guy that definitely got us hyped up when we saw his name joining servers. But on this G2 roster, he is looking unbelievable, which is impressive considering he's surrounded by so many top-level talents.
Yes.
Speaking of top level, keloqz, right? Recent addition to this level of competition, but I think he's been holding up very well. Now, I do want to see a little bit more depth brought out consistently from him. I'm not a huge fan of the consistent jet plays, but I think that that's almost like a building block for G2. It's something they're going to do in their early days because it's easy to slot in and make it work and play around it, and we'll start to see added depth as time goes on. I have no doubt that this is going to be a big team in the EU region.
Yeah, and seeing some of the way that the players are playing now, given the new composition of whether it's different players in the team, different styles, I think just the way that everything is being put together now is setting them up for success in the long run. Like, they're only going to keep getting better from here as long as they continue to expand their playbook. Some of these guys can expand like some of the individual plays that they make, you know, maybe remove some of the restrictions that they have in some of those moves and some of those plays and just kind of take it to some teams in certain moments and matches and things like that. But I think that comes in time, but they're definitely trending in the right direction there.
One of the things that really surprised me was Viper on mixwell. The fact that this guy has swapped up his role completely, allowed this space for someone like keloqz to come in and still feel comfortable just playing that jet agent has been spectacular, because mixwell hasn't just been playing Viper. He has been owning on that agent, looking spectacular in every single series that we've seen him in, even having 30 plus kills coming into some of the more important games in the tournament. So I'm really liking the look of G2. I think James, you know, back in the day, we used to cover these guys every tournament and say, you know, it's the puggy team. It's, can they ever, you know, will they ever find that strategy, that depth, or are they going to keep with this sort of loose play forever? We knew that there was a limited lifespan to that, and it looks like finally we're seeing G2 step it up.
And we do have to touch on Ascend though, right? Because their position and their dominance was huge. But one thing I saw, and fRoD, I want to get your opinion on this to start with, and then I'll come to you, Mitch, because one thing I hate is that, like, people just sit there and go, oh, it's because of CNED, like, it's not the rest of the team. But I think when you watch Ascend, you can actually see that, like, how the players work with him and around him. It's not just all about him. There's a lot of setting up in there. Yes, he's individually very talented and gifted, but the team also look very solid in understanding how they play in this system.
Yeah, I mean, when you get a very talented opera like that, I mean, you could look at how TSM is improving right now, just kind of the improvements that they're layering on top of Wardell and centering it around him. Then you're looking at, in my opinion, what really made Fnatic a team that was potentially going to contend with Sentinels was how Durka was playing with the op. And the jet. So I think that sort of aggressive op style is extremely important to overtake some of the best teams in your region and in the world as well. But now, if you're not playing around that person properly, if you're not utilizing him, I mean, there's a lot of moments, and I've even gone at lengths and talking about with some of the players on like my teams and things like that, especially with different oppers, that when you take certain space and maybe you want to fall back or whatever, you don't sacrifice that space after you've achieved it. Maybe you put someone else there, you slot someone there. So it's a lot of not only just having a dominant operator, but it's also understanding how to play around him. So not only does it have to come with the type of talent that you have, him controlling the tempo, but it's also a team thing and how they play around him and how they capitalize on the things that he does and the, you know, the moves that he makes. So I think that it's fantastic seeing CNED dominate like this. And I think that, you know, you're starting to see a lot of these teams that if they want to contend with Sentinels and how they're playing, they're gonna have to go this route, but not only just here and there, like maybe Fnatic does on certain maps or certain moments. It's gonna have to be like a 24/7 type thing if you really want to go ahead and be that consistent, dominant team. And it really starts around the opper, how he moves, but it's not really just how he hits the shots. It's more of like how everyone plays around him, makes the moves, the rotations, and the space that's created and everything like that.
Yeah, of course, CNED's going to look miles ahead of his teammates when it comes to the stats, but the reality is there's a whole lot more that goes into making a successful team. And I think one of the interesting challenges that we'll potentially see, and unfortunately will be towards the latter end of the tournament in the MEA, but we'll get to see CNED face off against some of his countrymen. And I think that it's something that we could definitely have, like if it's a Supermassive Blaze or a Fireflux, there could be a really interesting fight in seeing how the Ascend team and how CNED performs when he's up against some players that are definitely a bit more familiar with him, being as a lot of these guys played on teams with him in the past.
Well, let's start to look at the North American side of things. And actually, I'm going to start here, fRoD, with the TSM, because obviously they went through these kind of roster changes going on. We see Leviathan coming. He's a young 19-year-old who certainly helped make a big difference for these guys. But I guess I want to start with, because they've made it this far, do we know if he's going to be signed or not? Because I noticed on his Twitter it still says like free agent, not quite there yet. So is it a waiting game again to see if this player will be the permanent fix?
Yeah, I have no idea if he's going to be there, but I'm assuming that they're going to make every single push they can to get him, because he's been a very key element to that team. You know, obviously getting Bang as well has been helpful, but I think Leviathan and the way that he plays the Sova, that kind of confidence that he brings to the table is extremely important. Very talented player as well. So the way that TSM has been kind of flowing and the way they play off of each other, I think that they're like kind of G2, like they're trending in the right direction. You know, I think that they're a team that we're still yet to see how good that they could become given the certain changes and certain things that they're doing. Obviously it just requires them to, you know, not get overconfident, which I'm sure that they won't, but then also just keep practicing and keep figuring out certain moves and certain ways to build on what they're doing right now, because they're obviously, like I said, going in the right direction. These roster changes had to happen. I don't think it was about the fact that they needed to remove specific players. It was just they needed to inject certain life into the team, and these guys, you know, might have been the right people to do that. A lot of these guys, they have been on the up and coming tier 2 side of NA, so they've always been contending and trying to make a name for themselves. I mean, Noble has been no slouch of a team. These guys were posting some really nice upsets in previous VCT. I mean, when Astra came out, that's when they really started evolving each individually as players, and that's when you kind of started seeing them overtake certain teams. I think the first upset that they got was over Luminosity, and that's when people started giving them a lot more respect. But in the server, people started noticing what they were doing, and a lot of it was based on the way that they were including the meta, but also the individual plays that some of these guys were making was like fantastic, while including it within the new meta, like Astra and everything like that. Wardell has been the same player that he was, you know, in previous stages. I think that if anything, this has given him a lot more confidence, where the team is highlighting him more in certain cases. I think that he's playing with a lot more confidence. The people are understanding how to play better around him. I mean, he's firing on all cylinders right now. It's always going to be a problem going against Wardell. So, you know, having to understand how to deal with him and play against his style is one thing. But if he's just hitting his shots and he's playing aggressive and he's got Jet on him, I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult. And what I've always been saying is, you know, you kind of have to fight fire with fire. So it's one of those, like, you're going to have to do that same crazy Jet op play against if you want to take him down, because he's going to be relentless with that pressure. And I think that right now the team around him is understanding how to capitalize and also just kind of dominate around him as well, and setting him up for more success on a consistent basis as well.
You can tell as well that he's really loving playing Valorant, and I think that goes a long way. I think that, like, because I see it pretty much every day on Twitter, that little notification pop up, Wardell's gone live again. You know, he's streaming once more. This guy's putting in countless hours outside of team pracs and all that sort of stuff. So when you're in that kind of headspace, when you're really just feeling the game that you're playing, and you've got that team to back you up, that you've got that belief in, it really just sets you on another level. And from the games I've been seeing of Wardell, my God, he has certainly reached new heights.
Now it's time for our players to watch heading into stage 3 of the Challengers Playoff with our showstopper. And fRoD, I'm going to start with you to pick one EU and one NA player who you want to keep a keen eye on.
Yeah, for EU, I'm gonna have to go and say Kellogg's, because I think that he's one of those players that he just can dominate. I mean, he can be on that CNED potential. You just don't know right now. I mean, like, he's still got that potential. He's young. I think that G2 is going to continue to build around him and kind of showcase him more. So I just kind of want to see that. On the NA side, I'm going to have to say Superman and the boys over at Rise Nation. I mean, I think that those guys are playing very well right now. I think that they're that what's viewed as an underdog going into the next stage, but they're a team that is definitely there to play. Everyone on that team could be on that list, but I think Superman has been that key addition and has taken them to new heights. And I think that in this tournament, especially as the stages and the pressure keeps mounting, I think that he's going to be that rock on that team to kind of help take him over the edge.
I'll go for different picks, but it doesn't mean I disagree, let's say. You know, it'd be boring if we all just agreed and moved on. So I'll start with NA, or I'm going to say BCJ. I know this guy for quite a while. I know his battalion career. I love him, man. BCJ has been putting in the hours. Apex as well, right? He's played absolutely everything. But I really believe when it comes to especially that Viper gameplay, this guy, he's got something new for us when it comes to the big teams and the big names. I think XSET are going to do pretty well this time around. When I move to EU, though, I'm going to go a little bit, when I move to EMEA, because I'm not even going to be in EU for this pick. I'm going to go with Gambit's player, Defo. He is possibly the most irritating player to scrim against, and that's not because he plays scrims like they're, pugs. He plays everything like it's a pug, because he's unreal. I have seen moments where 3 to 4 players peek this guy with perfect spacing to trade, and he still headshots all of them. And it's just unbelievable sometimes what this guy can do. Honestly, for me, Defo is up there in terms of the caliber of the likes of CNET. Not playing the same role, but definitely capable of doing it, even if he's on that Sky, the Astra, or if he is on the trademark Jet. I really think that Gambit are going to have a good run, and a lot of it's going to be due to Defo.
Now, so for me, I want to start with the NA side of things. I'm going to be looking at good old Ethan. Obviously, he's come on over from CSGO. He's made his move over, got himself embedded now with the Valorant boys on 100 Thieves. I think like his skill ceiling was huge when it came to CSGO. Maybe never reached the highest heights of what they wanted to because of the team and the system that was there in place for the EG guys. Like he didn't get a chance to be on a Liquid, which we always kind of thought might be something where there we go, see the very best of him. But I feel like he still has so much more to give, and he seems super motivated when it comes to this. So if 100 Thieves can have a good run, Ethan can pop off alongside it. I'd certainly want to be keen eye all over that. And then I'm going to come on to Nuki for my EU side of things, because Mitch, you went EMEA. I'm going to have to take a bit of EU in that. And I got to go with my boy. I'm staying with the CS guys, I like what we're seeing from him. He was good on Heretics, right? But they never had maybe the biggest successes they needed. But if it comes to what he can deliver here, I feel like he's got the right team. He's got the biggest organization behind him as well. I feel like there's a lot more to be seen from him. And I don't think he's anywhere near at his best yet. So now I'm going to bring us back on over to the EU side of things. And this one, Mitch, it kind of stings. It kind of hurts because, like, we love Liquid. We love Fnatic. But Liquid had to knock Fnatic out. We've got no Fnatic for Masters 3 now, which is a huge surprise. Obviously, we've seen the tweets from Boaster and stuff. He's so unhappy about it. But just looking at that, right, it is a huge match. You got to cover it, right? It's one of those ones that always deliver. But Fnatic at the moment, like, I don't feel like they were at their best during this. And I also think the format, which is a weak format, in my opinion, when it comes to how the VCT plays out, is a big part of that.
Yeah, I was really glad, to be honest, that I wasn't cast in that game. 5 maps. It was a long one, let's say. I just don't think my heart could have taken it. Every single time, I mean, they were trading maps back and forth, and we knew that Liquid were going to have to face Fnatic as soon as they got dropped down. We saw that matchup, and we knew this is going to be an exciting game. It's going to be one that delivers, and it certainly did. But it still felt so bad to see what could have been our Liquid and Fnatic going through. What, in a way, should have been. Certainly, if you look at the grand final, I mean, it was Giants that knocked Liquid down in very dominant fashion. I mean, Liquid didn't even turn their monitors on for that series. They'd ordered some food, and they were not letting it go cold. They went down to the lower bracket. That means only one of those two make it forward. They beat Fnatic barely. They go back up to the upper, and they absolutely destroy Giants. 3-1 at BO5. It looked like Giants never found any footing in it. And a really incredible turnaround by Liquid in one way. Also, the fact that qualification was no longer on the line. So, obviously, it gets a little bit shaky on did these teams actually give a shit. And when you look at some of the comps they were running, I would say no. Going back a couple of months, it was like watching Brazil play. But when you look at how everything panned out, we had so many different upset teams. Teams like TenZ that came in. Teams like Vitality, who for a long time have been a nothing within the scene. Knocked out NIP, knocked out Heretics, knocked out Wave, and then didn't really get much done when it came to the main run of these playoffs. EU has been an unpredictable mess, but in a way that we can still find sense in. A lot of these games, like TenZ beating BDS, I wouldn't say that was because BDS shit the bed. I would say the exact opposite. I predicted TenZ to win that because they're a really good team that are coming out of completely left field when it comes to EU Valorant. And really, we're just showing that there's so much depth within this scene. My main hope now is that Giants are going to be able to fill those boots that Fnatic have left them. by having a good performance when it comes to the EMEA playoffs. And well, based on their upper bracket run, I think that's definitely possible.
No, to touch on what you said too, like I don't think that the format did any favors for Fnatic. I think that that's something that is, you know, almost for a whole different discussion, because I think that the format is just kind of all over the place in different regions. And, you know, obviously, like I said, didn't do them any favors, but I think that also Fnatic, you know, maybe in some sort of way, at least from my perspective, I don't think that they really adapted or changed too much. And when you're a team that's one of the most viewed teams out there, you know, simply because they were in Iceland, all eyes on them, you know, you got to be constantly evolving and changing things up and understanding that all eyes have been on you. That's not to say that every team you play against is anti-stratting you, but every team is educated against you. So you kind of have to keep things fresh, keep things new. And, you know, I think that, you know, obviously maybe they adapted and started changing things up a little bit too late when the format was getting a little bit too complicated or too tight to potentially qualify with those 2 spots in the second qualifier versus the 4 spots in the first qualifier. So it's just like too little too late to kind of get there, and it's very unfortunate. But yeah, I think it's just like a pretty big disappointment, to be honest, you know.
You have to remember as well, like you're saying, fRoD, these guys, they came in as the team that everybody was watching. Beating Fnatic is an accolade that pretty much everybody wanted, and that's very different to the run that Fnatic had last time. At every step of the way, it was something new. They were already passing their expectations. They were already leaving their expectations way behind, and so they were the underdog, right? They didn't have the pressure on them to perform, and now coming into this, they were the team in Challengers 1 that should have made it through, that pretty much everybody predicted to make it through. Then it comes to Challengers 2, and oh well, of course Fnatic are going to make it through this time, and they started out with the pretty shaky opener, right? A close series versus Alliance, a loss to Giants, made the lower bracket run. But I think this is a real learning experience for Fnatic. I don't think we're going to see them this week in the future, because this is a new experience, but now they're used to it. And coming into the next set of tournaments, they'll definitely be ready to fight for that spot in Champions.
And I do hope, because I know, fRoD, you touched on the side of things when it comes to this format. I really hope that, like, I understand what Riot are trying to do, and whoever's putting these formats together, you want to make something new or do a different style of doing it. But, like, some things that are tried and tested should probably stay the same, and you shouldn't mess around with formats that, like, ruin competitive integrity and what looks like could be a very decent actual event of seeing the best come through. Because I'm not saying Giants don't deserve to be there. They got there in the way they did. Like, but it's a new team who also, like, they have that new team, that new hype come to give it. And I'll happily sit here. Someone can clip this, quote me or whatever, and say, oh yeah, you're going to be wrong. Like, Giants are going to continue doing really well and smash everyone going forward. But I feel like if I see them drop off when it comes into this stage, then I'll just go, cool, it was just a fluke, you know, it was just a one-off. Like, and this is exactly why this kind of format doesn't work, and it shouldn't be like this. But we'll have to see. We'll have to wait how it goes on. But we'll move things over on towards the NA side of things, because I would say the FaZe lower bracket one was pretty damn impressive there, fRoD. Like, they even got the revenge against Rise, who you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, I mean, FaZe is a very strong team, and they're one of those teams that they get stronger as the tournament goes on. It almost seems like that, I mean, obviously it's their intention is not like that, but they just start off a little bit on the slower, maybe colder side, and then when they realize, like, guys, like, we can't lose on here, you know, we have to win out. Like, that's, I feel like, when they're at their best. So if they can kind of capture that sort of I don't know, sense of urgency just right out the gate, like, these guys will be very, very dominant, because they have the individual pieces, and getting someone like Baby J to fit in for Marv, like, no one knew how that was going to turn out, but it's actually been working out very well. And some of these players have a lot more freedom. Some of them are just going all out, like those sneak plays that Baby Bay does. Like, I mean, he's been doing them a lot more frequent now than he maybe was before. So I think if they can kind of give him that confidence to continue to do those things, I mean, he's also one of those, like, Wardell type players that he can just take over the game. And Wardell might be a little bit more passive with the op when it comes to Baby Bay, but it's like the dominance can be the same. And I think a lot of what FaZe was doing was based around Baby Bay doing his crazy things, and then everyone else just dominating around the scoreboard, you know, around him. Guys like Corey, Zachary, Rakas, you know, they're all playing very well, and I think that their coach Trippy is also doing a good job of kind of giving them that direction against specific teams, because they have to change a little bit of what they do specific to some teams. And even if they don't want to do that, at least have the understanding and knowledge of what specific teams are doing to kind of edit yourself a little bit, or have that knowledge. And I think that they've been putting that into their game a little bit more as they go along, which has only strengthened their strategies and what their flow is as a team.
I would say as well, right, when it comes to looking at just the NA teams at the moment, I feel like we're seeing more depth out of these NA teams, Mitch, right now than what we gave them credit for at the beginning. And I wouldn't say this is only Sentinels right now. I'd say it's a lot more competitive. Sentinels, yes, still on top, still look incredibly strong. I would say there's probably zero worries for them really at all. But I'd say the NA region in general has leveled up.
Yeah, I would say I've gotten in a lot of trouble for some of the comments I've been throwing out in casts, you know? I see Reddit threads. I see
oh really?
Twitch chat going. Yeah, it's always in a kind of jokey way, you know. But I definitely like to go in on NA. I like to make fun of them, but it's like in that friendly way. I got a lot of respect for them. I think that they're top 15, 20 teams. I would love to see like a big top 8 of them, top 8 of EU. You know, long event as well, not single elim, not even double elim. Hell, let's throw some group stages in there. Like, it'd be fantastic. But I think definitely, yeah, they've expanded past the old NA. You know, back in beta, I don't think we were taking it too far with what we were saying, and I still think the EU game is better. Let me be very clear on that. But I will say they're starting to learn. They're starting to take some notes.
Rod, let's look at this, right? So Sentinels right now, definitely the best team by far. But how big of a gap is there, do you think, between them and the other teams right now in NA?
Well, I think it's closing a little bit, but they're still definitely the best team. You know, you kind of have to beat them in order to kind of take that over. You might actually have to beat them multiple times and win the tournament while you do that, because you can't just beat them, lose the tournament, and then just call it a day. Like, it's not just a victory. Like, obviously, it's an accomplishment to beat Sentinels, but your goal is to be the best team in the world, and that's beating everyone along the way to a championship. So I think that as long as the teams have that kind of mentality, there are definitely some teams that are approaching there, that are kind of barking at there. But at the end of the day, it's really all about Sentinels. You know, they are the clear-cut best team in the world. It's not like this is speculative at this point, you know? So it's one of these things that it's like they have to either maybe let up a little bit, or which I really doubt that they will. And I think that if anything, some of those losses that they were having on their way to certain victories, like even Iceland, you know, they were inches away from maybe not even qualifying, but they ended up taking that and just running with it. So I think that they've learned those type of lessons, that to the point that someone is going to have to show a different level of play. Could be XSET. I mean, they were a team that was doing very well, and are starting to evolve even more. So you never know who it is, but like I said, they're going to have to beat them multiple times and go on and win that tournament, not just in some of these seeding games or some of these things. You know, it's going to have to be multiple times, because Sentinels is definitely the best team right now in our region.
Where does it put Sentinels right now, in your opinion, fRoD? The fact that they're already through to champions, the fact that they're in a comfortable spot, that they don't really need to perform at this tournament. Do you think the foot's going to be a little bit off the gas pedal?
I don't think so at all, honestly, because these guys are players that this is one of the first times that in their careers that they're tasting this sort of dominance, and I don't think they're going to let up. I think that they've gone through enough as individual players to understand what it takes. And I could have maybe said that in different iterations or different cases where they might have let up a little bit, but the fact that they've kind of accomplished what they have and they've seemed to not let up, I mean, really, that's where I come from saying, like, they're the ones that are gonna have to visibly drop off, that everybody notices, to the point that it's gonna have to be for a period of time, because yes, anyone could lose at a given day, so maybe they might lose, but at the same time, I think that they want to be those gatekeepers. They take pride in that. I think that they want to continue to do that, and at the end of the day, it's going to be like, if you want to do anything, the road goes through us. And I think that they take pride in that, and they're not going to let that up, especially like having had that for as long as they've had so far.
You know, I think the other thing is taking first place at Challengers Playoffs will give them 40K, which should help towards the giant hole in their pocket from buying TenZ. I think that they're gonna need to be focused. Like, if the players are like, yeah, we already made the big event, yeah, don't worry about it, the org of Sentinels is like, guys, we need money.
We need that money.
Gotta make it worthwhile.
There's a hole in the pocket that needs to be filled back up for sure after that one. Yeah. All right, that was a good one, guys. We're going to keep it moving on to our last part of the show. We're going to move on over for our bold predictions for the Stage 3 Challengers Playoff with the Recon Bolt. And when it comes to this, guys, Recon Bolt times means that you have to make a bold prediction, one for EU, one for NA. And I'll give you guys a little bit of time. I'll get to start off on this one. For EU, I'm going straight in with Na'Vi because, you know, you mentioned Gambit all the time. They are the most dominant one. Yeah, I knew you'd be surprised, Mitch. I knew you'd be surprised. But, like, they're my boys, you know. I got to rep the hometown in that sense. And I actually liked what I saw from these guys. I didn't expect the new roster to come together that quickly and even make it through the qualifications. So the fact they've done that, they're working hard, they got a good facility, they got a good team and staffing behind them. Yeah, it's probably going to be very hard for them to challenge a team like Gambit, but if there's a team that could have like a chance of making it through, then they might be able to slip through, considering you look at the bracket and how it all pans out. But NA, it's a little bit weirder for me. I'm probably still going to go out on a whim, and I'm just going to back my CS boys and go over 100 Thieves. I want to see Nitro still have some success. I want to see Hiko do some big damage and that. But for me, that's like not even a bold prediction. It's like the boldest prediction I can find going into it. But Mitch, what are you thinking?
I mean, based on what you said, I'll go with the bold prediction. Sentinels are going to win. I mean, let's play it safe, are we? No. I know. I'll go. I'll actually take a little bit of a risk here, and I'm going to keep fanboying, man. I'm going to say XSET. Not only are they going to do well in this tournament, they're going to beat Sentinels. I think they're going to beat them in a series. I'm gonna roll the dice, and yes, that means it will be the upper bracket final, more than likely, where they would face them. But hell, I'm willing to put the cards on the table. I'm willing to roll those dice. When it comes to EU. I'm not quite gonna go for Na'Vi. Please forgive me for that, James. I can't help but feel like you've made that pick just so next time you're down at the Na'Vi offices, you'll be like, hey, by the way, boys, I got you. Can I get some more shorts? My legs are getting bigger. I need them. But I'm gonna say that not only are we gonna see G2 perform pretty decently, I'm gonna guess that they make it to the grand final all the way. And I think with their side of the bracket, the only real challenge for them in that is going to be FPX, ignoring the lower bracket. If they make it past FPX, they should have an easy enough time in at least securing that top 3 finish and then pushing past. But I really feel like this is going to be G2's tournament.
I want to say first things first. I guess the jinx is in because given our last prediction, we made Ambox and Fnatic and they didn't even make it to the next stage. I barely even get out of the open. So I mean, hopefully the curse, this is not going to go through to the next teams because we really are rooting for these guys. But on the NA side, I'm gonna have to say Rise. I really want them to do well. I think that you guys are both right in the sense, like I think 100 Thieves has a really good shot at it. Sentinels is kind of almost that guarantee. But I think whether between XSET and Rise, I kind of want to lean on Rise because, like I said, I think people are maybe underestimating them a little bit more. But I think that's going to be great there. And then on the EU side, I'm going to have to go with Gambit. They were a team that I wanted to see go very far in the previous VCT. So I think that in this case, I think they're going to just run with it. I'm like a CIS fanboy when it comes to watching them play. I want to see them just kind of dominate the scene, to be honest, and just kind of run wild. And I think that that play style deserves to kind of be shown more, and I can't really wait to watch it.
Love it. Thank you very much, Mitch and fRoD. And I just want to say, right, I saw some comments last time when we did our bold predictions, and people were like, oh, why are you making silly predictions? Like, this will never make sense. This is why it's called a bold prediction, try to get it, try to make a suggestion that might not be just the favorites, give you guys a bit of a team to look at and hype about. That was a good bit of fun doing our Recon Bolts once again with our bold predictions.